Welcome back. As you know, I'm Eli, the computer guy, here for the Daily Blob, where we say, never, ever, ever invite a vampire into your house. Everybody knows as soon as you invite a vampire into your house, everything is going to go to hell. Well, the same is true in the business world. Never hire a blue hair into your business, because they will then become the capitalism's version of a vampire to your business. It's all going to go downhill from there. Don't let vampires into your house, and don't hire blue hairs into your businesses. Come on now, this is just common sense. So anyways, I think this is kind of an interesting story with the continuation of, I don't know, I guess we can just say 2025. This is just the continuation of 2025, right? So there are some things going on in the Middle East right now. Some, ethnic cleansing-y type things, some genocidally type things, some just like you just read it. You just read what the politicians are literally saying, what is literally coming out of the politicians' mouths. And you're like, wow. Wow. It's impressive, right? It's not reading between the lines. It's not connecting the dots. No, they say it. They say it out loud and proud. So anyways, there's a lot of stuff going on over there. There's a lot of stuff going on all around the world. There's a lot of stuff going on in the United States right now. And there's more of this feeling of resistance. You must do your part to resist whatever the hell's going on. So I think the interesting thing in the technology world, one of the things I've been discussing for about the past decade, is that, motherfuckers, you didn't let one blue hair into your business. You didn't let one blue hair into your business. You hired entire colonies of these bastards, right? Anyways, over the past decade, one of the most important things for technology businesses was simply getting asses in seats. It wasn't about profit. It wasn't about revenue. It wasn't about user growth or anything like that. It was about getting asses in seats. When we have a 1% interest rate, and when you take out loans, basically high net worth individuals were taking out loans at 1% interest rates and trying to put that money somewhere where it would get them a return. And so they're putting it into technology companies, because the idea with technology companies is that you will get an exponential return, right? A 10x return or 100x return. You borrow at a 1% interest rate and you get a 100% interest rate. That basically means you get 99% profit, essentially for free. But the question is where do you put the money? And so, all these tech companies out there were trying to prove that they were successful. And if you don't have revenue, you don't have profit, you don't have growth, you're not actually doing anything worth a good goddamn, what do? You hire people. You hire so many people to prove how successful you are. The issue is once you start hiring people, right, you get the issue with company culture, right? Company culture is incredibly important. With your company culture is going to trump almost everything, right? If people all more or less look at the world the same way, they have more or less the same expectations, then when they are given tasks or whatever else, they are going to complete the tasks in about the way everybody else is going to complete the tasks, right? If you go out there and you just start hiring anybody you can off the street, you're going to get all kinds of wackadoodle people, right? That's why if you have a factory, right, you probably don't want to hire artistic people in the factory. People that think that you should do drugs, random drugs, to expand your view of the world. You probably should not hire in a factory environment, right? If you have, equipment that weighs multiple tons, that slices and crushes and does a whole bunch of stuff incredibly quickly, you probably don't want folks that think, recreational drug use, like, ooh, look, there's a liquid on the ground. I wonder what happened if I sniffed that. Right now, don't get me wrong, right? Those people, you send them to Hollywood. You send those people to Hollywood, because then they'll sniff something, and then they'll see something amazing in their mind's eye, and then they'll hopefully at some point give us good movies again. Someday we'll get good movies again. But anyways, right? That's the thing, is the people that want to do a lot of drugs, you send to Hollywood, and the people that say drugs are bad, you put them in the fucking factories, right? That's the whole idea with culture, right? The problem is these tech companies have brought everybody in because they didn't care about their culture. They didn't care about shipping products. They didn't care. They just cared about getting that investor cash. The issue we have right now is that's getting unwound. That is getting unwound. A whole bunch of worthless employees are being thrown in the corporate trash can. The issue is whenever you've had to downsize, right? You get to a certain age in life and you start downsizing, you start cleaning out your house. You realize how difficult it is to figure out what is trash and what is not trash. Like you sit there and there's all this stuff, and you know you got to get rid of a lot of stuff. I got to get rid of 50% of the stuff. But I don't want to get rid of the good stuff, and I do want to get rid of the bad stuff. But what is the definition of bad? And what is the definition of good, right? And so it takes you so long to downsize properly. Because you're like, well, maybe I'll need this in the future, so I'll put this over here. And then, oh no, this is garbage. And then your spouse comes in and goes, why are you going to throw away this incredibly valuable thing? And they move this over here. And they go, why are you trying to keep this piece of crap? And they move that over here. And then you get into a stupid fucking argument. And it's, it's so fucking bad, right? Anyways, right? Think about this, right? These corporations are trying to downsize right now. And so as they're trying to downsize, they're trying to figure out who is the trash, who is the garbage, and who is the valuable. And it's hard. It's hard for a business owner, for a manager to figure that kind of stuff out. And we're in this weird world. So we got all these employees, we got all these blue-haired employees, they want to resist. Who are they resisting? God knows. Who knows? They're just resisting. And then we have these bosses who are trying to eliminate employees, which are only pissing off even more employees, and all kinds of stuff's going on. So I think this is interesting, especially when we look at Microsoft. And my question here is, where is this going to go in the future? Again, as I've talked about before, my family's from West Virginia. My family is old school West Virginia, like pre-Civil War era West Virginia. My family fought for West Virginia. What does that mean? I don't know, go learn some fucking history. Anyways, again, we have the relics, right? Many members of my family were part of the West Virginia militia fighting for West Virginia. Anyways, I went to school for a while in West Virginia when I was young, and we got taught about the labor movement. The men and women who actually fought and fucking died for most of the rights we have in this country, that for some reason we suction cup that crap onto the Army and Marines. Like, it's weird when you think about all the freedoms that we have in this country and how many men and women in the labor movement fought and died here in the United States for the rights that we hold dear. And yes, for some reason, we keep thinking sending our boys and girls halfway across the world, that is what's actually going to defend our freedoms. But anyways, right, there was a whole bunch of stuff back then, right? The war was going on in Appalachia back in the day, the starvation events and all of that kind of nasty stuff. Anyways, that's why I think it's kind of interesting seeing what's kind of going on right now with the whole K-shaped recovery. Again, that is not a recovery. K-shape is not a recovery. But anyways, we have this K-shaped recovery going on. We have the oligarchy going on. We have the genocide going on. We have the pay disparities and all that kind of stuff going on. At the exact same time, we have the people that want to be revolutionaries and want to resist. And what becomes interesting is what happens to the technology companies. What happens to the poor technology companies that allowed the blue hairs into their doors as the world goes insane? Apparently, they have to start arresting people. They start having arresting people. Oh boy. How long till the Pinkertons? Is the Pinkeringtons or Pinkertons? How long till the Pinkertons come back? That's my question. Who are the Pinkertons for the modern world? 5 current and ex-Microsoft workers arrested at sit-in over Israeli military ties. So this is from CNBC. And yes, so basically we had Microsoft employees and ex-employees try to do a sit-in and they got arrested. And I think this is just, it's a Rorschach test. This is completely a Rorschach test, right? So if you're one of those people that leans to the corporate mentality, you're like, look at these blue hairs. These blue hairs are trying to overthrow our society. That is why they must be crushed. And if you're a blue hair, you're like, look, we're trying to stop genocide. And we're getting arrested in our own country. This is proof that capitalism is evil. Oh. It's a dumpster fire that has no end. It's a dumpster fire that has no end. Anyways, police placed protesters in harnesses, fuck me, and took them in after sit-in urging tech giant to cut ties with the Israeli government. At least 2 current and 3 former Microsoft employees, as well as 2 other tech workers, were arrested at the company's headquarters after staging a sit-in demonstration at the company president's office, urging that Microsoft cut ties with the Israeli government. Police placed protesters in full-body harnesses and carried them out of the building, according to Abdo Mohammed, a former Microsoft worker who helped organize the demonstration. Quote, "No arrest, no violence will deter us from continuing to speak up." And so this is going to be curious to see how this starts going, right? As people who used to make 6-figure salaries for putting their asses on a fucking seat, as they start getting eliminated en masse, and as they see this, right? They don't see this as a misallocation of investment money a decade ago, right? They see this as late stage capitalism horse crap. And so it's kind of curious here. So you have these highly educated people, might be a bit stupid as bricks, but anyways, they're highly educated, right? They have been highly compensated, and now they feel that late stage capitalism is crushing them, right? As they start to wave the flags for the protests, the fights, and all that out there, it is kind of curious. It's like curious, like how this crap starts to roll downhill, and how quickly this crap will roll downhill. Anyways, in addition to the protesters who staged a sit-in at Microsoft President Brad Smith's office, other employees, former staff, and supporters had gathered outside the headquarters. The demonstration on Tuesday was part of a series of actions organized by current and former staff over Microsoft's cloud contracts with the Israeli government. 20 activists were arrested at the company's headquarters in Redmond, Washington last week. Quote, "You continue to try to bury your head in the sand, so we are here today outside your blood-soaked thrones." Yeah, your paycheck doesn't come from any of this shit. No. The capitalist pigs are the ones that profit off the ethnic cleansing and the genocide. Don't worry, blue hairs. The money that pays for your paychecks comes from an entirely different place. I don't know, farms out in the country somewhere. You know all those farms where the little dogs and cats and goats get sent to once they get a little bit too old to live in kids' houses? Yeah, your technology is empowering those farms to become more efficient at supporting these elderly pets. That's where your salary comes from. Anyways, I do find this stuff to be kind of funny. Again, how everybody focuses on particular things to get pissed off about where money comes from. And again, as you say, your blood-soaked thrones. There's a lot of blood-soaked hands out there. And I'll be curious, again, to see how this kind of fleshes out at the end of the day. You got to think about this with Israel. Israel spends a shit ton of money. One thing you got to say about the Israelis and their genocidal campaign is it's expensive. It is so much money to try to eradicate the Palestinians, right? Especially with technology solutions. And you got to think about the billions upon billions upon billions of dollars that Israel is dumping into the Azure data centers and the rest of their systems. That's billions of dollars, right? You think about this with the average American, let's say, makes $50,000 a year. That means $1 million is 20 man years. A single $1 million is 20 people entire salary for a year, right? $10 million is 200 100 million is 2,000. A billion is something like 20,000. 1 billion is 20,000 people's salary for a year. So if you think Israel is spending billions upon billions upon billions of dollars just to beat the ever-loving snot out of the Palestinians, you do got to realize that pays for a lot of jobs. It's one of those sticky wickets people don't want to talk about. I think about this with the United States. When the United States, we went to war in Iraq for oil. Sure, whatever. Anyways, right, there's this whole idea. We went to war in Iraq for oil, and that is evil. And it's amazing how now in 2025, all those people that said going to war in Iraq for oil was evil, they now all bike. Did you realize that about the U.S. population? The U.S. population, 75% of our adults gave up private transportation, their own vehicles, because they could not stomach the thought that Middle Easterners were going to get slaughtered so that they could drive to the mall. That's true. That's not true. But that would be truth if any of this actually mattered to most people. But anyways, it's one of those interesting things to consider with the whole economic systems. When you have people making six-figure salaries from technology companies that empower militaries all around the world, and then to focus on one military, and then to say, that's evil, but it's your blood-soaked hands. My hands aren't blood-soaked because I'm protesting. I don't know. To continue pulling your baby killer necks out of your sand holes and continue to force you to confront your complicity until you stop powering the murdering of our people, said Ibtihal Abu Saad, one of the protesters who delivered a speech outside the company headquarters on Tuesday. Meanwhile, Microsoft has taken extraordinary measures to quell demonstrations, which have been ongoing for months. According to a report from Bloomberg, the company has requested help from the FBI to track protests and worked with local authorities to stop them. So, I don't know. This is going to get dumber. This is going to get dumber. Oh, I don't know. When do you think it's all going to get vaguely sane again? Do you think by 2030 things will be vaguely sane again? I'm not sure. I put a $5 bet on that. Maybe 2035. Maybe 2035. But it's going to be interesting to see how all this spins out at the end of the day. You know, with so many of these technology companies and with the employees of these technology companies and with this protest, with this resist mentality. At the exact same time, people want to get paid themselves. How everything works in these interconnected systems. I don't know. It'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see how this fleshes out. But it could go sideways. Like one of the fascinating things for me is, especially in the United States, so many people, especially in the technology world, just accept, they take for granted nonviolence. Right, as I've talked about before, I got my degree in criminal justice. The first big company that I worked for did not deal with employees well. Oh, you ever have that time when you go into badge into work? You want to badge into work and all of a sudden your badge doesn't work? And then you're like, oh, fuck, it was me. And then the secretary's like, no, you're fine. We just have another irate employee that they're worried might come in and shoot somebody. You're like, oh, good, I'm not fired. And then you grab your cup of coffee and you run to the server room. The only room in the entire building that has an extra set of locks is the server room. So you're like, I'm just gonna go do all of my work in the server room today. I'm kind of curious to see how far this idiocy could spin. Right? And you think about that with the Pinkertons. Back in the day with Ford and with Carnegie and all those kinds of folks. Think about how bad that got. And it's like this, it's an interesting concept. We're at this transition point for the United States. And you're wondering how I don't know how things could go sideways. Like what would happen? What would happen if an IED went off at Microsoft's headquarters? How many people would not show up the next day? What happens to return to office mandates the moment an IED goes off? Right? If you have die-hard belief, you have people that die-hard believe that Microsoft is complicit in slaughtering babies, what becomes morally excusable at that point? And then the interesting part for me is how do you run your operations in that type of environment? I don't know. It's kind of curious. What do you think? What do you think about Microsoft workers staging a sit-in and being arrested at Microsoft's headquarters? Do you think this bodes poorly for the future? Or do you just think this is some blue hairs, getting the ants out of their pants or whatever else? I don't know. Put your thoughts down below. I think it's going to get worse. I will put my $5 bet on it's going to get a lot worse. But anyways, thoughts down below. If you like these videos, give us a thumbs up. If you hate these videos, give us a thumbs down. Call me amazing. Call me a moron. Just say it down in the comment section. And with that, see y'all later.